You're a terrible writer. You'll probably have to repeat 3rd grade. Those were the words of my 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. Taylor. She told me that Wednesday. I'm only kidding. She told me that I had just recently transferred to O'Keefe Elementary School in Chicago, Illinois. It was my 2nd day in class. I wish I could tell you that that conversation was shared in the privacy of a parent-teacher meeting, but it wasn't. It was shared in front of the entire class. You see, that was my 4th school in 9 months. My parents were getting divorced. The day before that, they had given me a series of tests and told me to write an essay. And she read the results in front of the entire school. Raise your hands if you know that children can be the cruelest people on the planet. Thank you. I wish I could tell you that it ended there, but it didn't. By the time recess rolled around, not only were the kids in my class making fun of me, the entire school was making fun of me. Could you feel my embarrassment? Could you feel my pain? That little voice, "You're not a good writer," stuck with me for a long, long time. A long, long time. But I was able to get over it with the help of some friends. One of those friends, and actually I wouldn't say one friend, there's 2 friends, and there was 1 villain. In the speaking business, there is an axiom, and the axiom is publish or perish. This is also true in academia as well. And people in the speaking business are always asking me, "Ed, how come you don't have a book? How come you don't have a book? How come you don't have a book?" Well, because of that one voice in my head, I didn't have a book, despite the evidence. You see, in high school, I won something called the National Anthology of Student Essays. I'm a former news anchor. I've been actually invited to be a columnist for a nationwide magazine, but I turned it down because of that voice inside of my head. But one day, something happened. 3 people helped me out. Number 1 was the villain. And I was channel surfing one day, and I saw this talk show. And on this talk show, it stopped me because this guy, he was wearing a suit, but he had some very unusual sunglasses on. So I decided to investigate and see what was going on. And as it turns out, he was an author. And he had written the following book. The book is entitled Pimpology: How to Be a Pimp. And I said to myself, oh my gosh, a pimp has got a book. Please tell your neighbors, a pimp has got a book. I'm up until that day, I'm thinking to myself, the only thing I thought that a pimp could do with his hands was to slap an employee. And all of a sudden it occurred to me, a pimp's got a book. And not only does he have a book, he's on a book tour. He's marketing. On the screen, there's a trailer. And it says, www, be a pimp now. There's an 800 number. Operators were waiting. How many of you know that real life is better than fiction? You can't make this stuff up. And all of a sudden it occurred to me, you know, if a pimp can write a book, well, maybe it was time for me to let go of that little voice in my head. Because I don't know about you, but I think that I have something far more valuable to tell the world other than how to degrade women. Won't you agree? And so do you. Each and every one of you who hasn't written that book, you have something far more valuable to give to the world. So I'm going to invite you, I'm going to challenge you to also write a book as well. That first hero was Darren LaCroix. Darren said the following. He says, a blog is nothing more than an email sharing what you've learned. You do this for a living. Can you write 2-paragraph email about what you've learned? And the answer is, of course. The second hero, her name is Carrie Perrin Smith, and she said the following. She said, Eddie, separate your ideas from your grammar. Now, as simple as that idea sounds, It was news to me. You see, I thought since my grammar was so bad, my ideas were so bad. And she says, no. She says, you need some help with your grammar, but your ideas are brilliant. She says, you can hire someone for the grammar. You can get anyone on the internet. But we can't just get anyone to come up with good ideas. And in that moment, I experienced something, what I call a mindset shift. That is, I shifted from that little voice in my head that had held me back for so long to a new awareness. And my goal here today is to share with you what I call mindset shift strategies and technologies, so that you can move beyond being stuck. Anyone here been stuck? Thank you. Now, one of the ideas I'm going to share with you is counterintuitive. It's not the way that you have been taught. It is not the way that you have learned. In fact, I'm willing to bet the vast majority of you will resist it. You will reject it. But I'm going to invite the following. What if this idea will help you? What if this new view or this mindset shift will help you move beyond being stuck and to be successful? What if? So let's go on with it, shall we? Here's what I'd like you to do. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to write down traits and characteristics of some of your heroes or leaders or people that you admire. That is the kind of person you would like to be or follow. So list as many traits and characteristics as you possibly can. You've got 2 minutes, go. What are some of the traits and characteristics? Anyone? What's that? Confidence. Confidence. Thank you. What else? Yes? Be a phoenix? Yes. All right. I'm glad you're spelling. All right. Yes. Visionary. Yes. Authentic. Yes. Determined. Yes. Creative. They have integrity. Yes. They're passionate. They lead by example. They're demanding. Yes. Spontaneous. How are we doing? Okay, we have Phoenix, integrity. Okay. By the way, everyone say hello to NASA. Yes. Dynamic. Yes. Disciplined. Walt. Calm in a crisis. They're calm in a crisis. Okay? Yes. They have a sense, they have humor. Humor. Yes. They're dependable. Yes. They're gracious. Yes. Humble and strong. Yes. Inspirational. Inspirational. Over there, yes. Challenges adversity. Yes, sir. They're principled and good-hearted. They're teachable. Yes. Empathetic. And one last one, who really has got one, a really good one. Okay. They're honest. Honest and spiritual. All right, thank you.
Are you reading these? Are you expecting to read these?
Let's give her a hand. Thank you very much, okay? Spiritual. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm glad you did it. All right. Please stand if this list reflects you. Look at it. All right. We always have a couple takers. We got 4 people. And we're talking the entire list plus the list that everyone has written here. So please stand if that list reflects you. No takers?
What about a percentage? 1%.
I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you. In a moment, I will show you that this list does indeed reflect you. Please turn your workbooks to page number 75. What I'd like you to do is on the top, we have what we call, these are personal characteristics. And we have 4 blank slots on the top, and we have 4 blank slots on the bottom. On the top, I'd like you to list what I call your characteristic strengths. So it could be some of the things that maybe you're visionary, maybe you're authentic, maybe you're creative, etc. List whatever your characteristic strengths are there. On the bottom, what I'd like you to do is list areas that you'd like to improve upon. Your weaknesses. List 4 of those. Begin. For those of you who are finished, what I'd like you to do next is there's some scales. They go from -5 to +5. I'd like you to evaluate yourself as you see it. Please give yourself a score on each one of these traits and characteristics, from -5 to +5. And again, it's as you see it. So for example, if you put down open-minded and you gave yourself a +3, place that number on the bottom part of the scale, on the bottom. And conversely, in terms of listening, if you want to improve in terms of listening and you saw yourself as a -2, again, put that on the bottom of the scale. Question for you. Looking on the bottom, had we done this exercise 2 or 3 years ago, would the same things have occurred? Show of hands. Yes? No? What does it say about the processes that you've used to correct those? Or they don't work, or perhaps maybe they're not that important to you. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to put a star next to at least 2 of those things you'd like to improve by the end of the year. Just put a star, and we're going to come back to this list a little bit later on. I'm curious, are they attitudes or are they skills? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to have an election, and you only get to vote one way or the other. I'm going to call out each one of these leadership characteristics, and you're going to tell me, and it's going to be voice, vote, majority rules. Voice, vote, majority rules. There are no ties. Which is it more of, an attitude or a skill? Is everyone with me? All right, so confidence, is that an attitude or a skill? Attitude. Okay. Be a phoenix. Visionary. Authentic. Creative. Leads by example. Okay, voice, vote, majority rules. Spontaneous. Integrity. Goal-oriented. Flexible. Let's see. Principled. Good-hearted. Empathetic. Honest. Spiritual. Dynamic. Disciplined. Calm in a crisis. Humorous. There's someone over here really loud. I think they're swaying the vote. Dependable. Gracious. Humble. Inspirational. So let's see what we got here. Attitude, 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 skill. Attitude, 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 skill. Attitude, 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 skill, 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 attitude. What are some messages here? Attitude is important. Am I suggesting that skill is not important? Let's say, for example, let's look at a skill, like listening. Wouldn't you agree that's a skill, being a good listener? Let's say, for example, we had an employee, and we had to send this employee to good listening school because he wasn't a good listener. He goes to school, he scores A's on all the tests and all the exams. He comes back to work. Is he a good listener? Not necessarily, but we have proof. We have quantifiable, measurable proof that he's a good listener. Why would you suggest that he's not a good listener? He may have a bad attitude. He may not use what he knows. And that, my friends, is an attitude. Even though on the surface it appears to be a skill. Now, what's the good news about attitude being a part of success? You can change it. How long does it take to change an attitude? A second or? Forever. Forever and a day. Here's what I'd like you to do right now. I'd like you to share what I call an attitude shift story. I'm going to give you an example. I'm only going to give you about 60 seconds to share with your neighbor or so, but if you have one, share it with your neighbor. And here's an example of an attitude shift story. There's a customer of mine. They have a teenage daughter who works for Mrs. Fields Cookies. It's a Saturday afternoon. It's very, very busy. Her coworker takes her break. There is a senior citizen behind the counter, and she's taking a long time to make a decision. In the meantime, there's a long line that is forming. What is the attitude of the teenager behind the counter? Hurry up. She's frustrated. What is the attitude of the other customers? They're impatient. Finally, the senior citizen, she comes to the front counter, and she thanks the young lady for being so patient. She says, "Thank you. I want to make sure that I give my son the correct cookies tomorrow before he leaves for Iraq." Now, what is the attitude of the young lady? She's embarrassed, but she's also maybe more kind and compassionate. What about the other customers? It depends. Would you agree a little bit more compassionate? You see, ladies and gentlemen, we have the capacity, we have the capability of changing our attitudes in a moment, if we choose to. Make sense? Each and every one of you is capable of conducting what I call an attitude shift. You can do it in a moment. So take 60 seconds and share with your neighbor if you have an attitude shift story. Go. You got 60 seconds. You got to make it quick. Show of hands. Who had an attitude shift story? Just raise your hands quickly. Thank you. Look around the room. Each and every one of you is capable of what we call an attitude shift story. Now, you guys know what CYA stands for, yes? Okay. Call your attorney. Oh, I'm sorry. Does it mean something different here? Oh, okay. Let's try this. Challenge your assumptions? Or change your attitude? I'm still headed towards this counterintuitive idea. There's a couple other components I need to share with you before we actually get to the idea. Let's talk about the functions of the human mind. And there's two functions of the human mind. There is an intuitive mind. It is creative. It is playful, visual, emotional, random. Then we have what we call the analytical mind. And the analytical mind is analytical, logical, sequential. There is one trait about the analytical mind that we need to consider. It is programmable like a computer. Programmable like a computer. And there's a problem with programmability. Programmable is deceivable. Programmable is deceivable. Let me give you an example. Let's say, for example, it's payroll. You got your payroll check, and there's a line of code in the computer, and it says that 7 plus 5 is equal to 1. How long would it take you to figure out there was something wrong with your paycheck? How long? An instant. How long would it take the computer to know? It would never know. Programmable is deceivable. How many of you remember Y2K? Who still has bottled water and canned goods? Programmable is deceivable. And in computer systems, we call it programming. In human systems, we call it beliefs. Are there some beliefs that you once held when you were younger that today are no longer true? What would be some examples of that? Not good enough? Okay, what else? Money doesn't grow on trees. What else? Someone said, did you say Santa? We're going to stop the seminar here for a moment. I'm sorry, what were you saying about Santa? I heard it over here, this part of the room. Programmable is deceivable. And ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you there is some programming through our belief systems that we have been fed that is inaccurate. I call it the ultimate deception. The ultimate deception. But before I share it with you, let me put it to you this way. How do you measure darkness? Absence of light. You either have, we either have no light or we have some light. But we can never have less than 0. Is everyone with me? So if that's true, how do we measure weaknesses? Absence of strength. We either have some of a trait or a characteristic, or we have none of a trait or characteristics. But we can never have less than 0. Is everyone with me? The ultimate deception is this. The ultimate deception is a belief through programming that we have weaknesses. I submit to you that we have no weaknesses. Each and every one of you has varying degrees of strength measured from 0. Let me repeat that to you again. You do not have any weaknesses. Each and every one of you has strengths measured from 0. Are you with me so far? Are you resisting me so far? Yes, thank you. Well, thank you for being honest. I appreciate that. The truth is this. You have no weaknesses, only strengths measured from 0. We have been sold that this is the plan. This is how it works. We either have strengths or we have weaknesses. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you can't be a minus in any aspect of your life. You cannot be a minus. You either have something or you have nothing. But you can never have less than none. Are you with me? You either have something or you have nothing. But you can never be less than none. We have been sold a bill of goods, folks. We have been sold a lie. You have no weaknesses. We have varying degrees of strength measured from 0. We call this concept resetting to 0. And in any area of your life where you see yourself as a minus, you have to reset the scale. Let me give you a physical example. Let's say, for example, we have 2 beakers of H2O. We have 2 beakers of water. The one to your right is at minus 1 degree Celsius. The one to your left is at currently 1 degree Celsius. We want to increase the temperature of the water by 2 degrees for each. Now let me ask you this. How much energy does it take to do that for both? Is it the same or does one require more? Who says the same? Show of hands. Thank you. Who says one requires more? Okay, which one requires more? Okay, the one on that side. And why does it need more? Why does it need more energy? What is its current state? It's minus. It is, what is the state? It's frozen. It's ice. Here's the deal. It actually takes 80% more energy to heat this 2 degrees than it does the other one. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in any area of your life where you see yourself as a minus, do you understand now why you haven't made any progress? Do you understand now why you feel stuck? Because mentally you are frozen. No aspect of your life. You can never be less than 0. You either have none of a capability or you have some of it. But you can never be less than none. Tell your neighbor, I've got some or I've got none. Tell somebody else, I've got some or I've got none. But I can never be less than 0. Tell your other neighbor, you can never be less than 0. Is this good? Is this good material? Please tell your neighbors, I told you he was good. Here's the point. We must make a state change in our mind in any area of our lives where we see ourselves as less than 0. And here's the cool part. We don't have to have 80% more energy. How long does it take to change an attitude? A second. Or if you choose to, a lifetime. Here's the good news about attitude being a part of success. You can change it. You can never be less than 0. It takes no energy to make a state change in your mind or an attitude shift. Reprogram the truth. What I'd like you to do is go back to page, I believe it's page 75, where we have the scales. And this is what I'd like you to do, is I'd like you to change the scales. So what I want you to do is I want you to cross off your previous scales and put the new numbers on top. So in this particular case, if you previously gave yourself a -2 as a weakness, the new score is +3. If you rated yourself as a 0 previously, the new score is +5. And if you didn't see yourself as a minus and you gave yourself, in this case, a +3 credit on the old scale, on the new scale, that's a +8. Change all your scales. Please do that now. And by the way, the scale doesn't stop at 10. It actually goes out to infinity. But for our purposes, it's a 10 today. Now let me ask you this. Is there a difference in seeing yourself as a -2 versus a +3? Is there a difference? And what's the message to you in that difference? It doesn't take so much energy. What else? I'm good. You're good too. There's hope. Ladies and gentlemen, you can never be less than 0 in any area of your life. We have been sold a bill of goods, the ultimate deception, that you have weaknesses. You have no weaknesses. We have varying degrees of strength measured from 0. So I'm going to ask you one more time. Please stand if this list does indeed reflect you. Give yourselves a hand. Give yourselves a hand. Tell your neighbor, you rock. Tell your other neighbor, I rock too. You may be seated.